I'm no tech genius, but I knew if I wanted my business to crush it, I needed a website now. Thankfully, Bluehost made it easy. I customized, optimized, and monetized everything exactly how I wanted with AI. In minutes, my site was up. I couldn't believe it. The search engine tools even helped me get more site visitors. Whatever your passion project is, you can set it up with Bluehost. With their 30-day money-back guarantee, what do you got to lose? Head to Bluehost.com. That's BLUEHOST.com to start now.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
His name is Thomas Dominic. He had really blonde hair. It was almost gold, and he had the cutest little lips. I remember kissing them so much.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. I'm just so excited to talk to Yaz today. She reached out to me, and she has had a very recent loss, and so I'm so grateful that she's willing to come and share her son's story. You could tell that she just wanted to talk about him, and so we're so excited to have Yaz and to talk about Tommy. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What does your family look like, and where are you guys located in the United States, just so we know who you are?
Yeah, we are located in Southern California.
Okay.
We live in a very small town. It's really small, and it's just my husband, myself, and my cat.
Okay. Yay.
Yeah, so it's just the three of us.
Awesome.
Right
Do
now.
you guys have family in that area? Is that where you guys are originally from?
We are originally from Southern California, but we bought our home in this small town about a year ago. So we've only been here for like a year.
Yeah. Okay.
My family lives maybe like 40 minutes away.
Okay.
Still not super far, but it's still 40 minutes away.
Yeah. It's far enough away, but it's also close enough.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. And same thing with your husband, kind of close-ish by, but not too far.
Yeah, his dad is maybe like 30 minutes away also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
So great. That is really nice. And what do you guys like to do as a couple? Are you guys do you both work and going to school or anything like that?
Yeah, we both work. My husband, he is a tower climber engineer, and I am a registered veterinary nurse.
Oh my goodness, you guys are busy.
Yeah.
And cool.
Yeah, and then for fun, I mean, my husband's pretty active. We like to work out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We like to be out in nature a lot. Lots of walks. We live in a area where there's mountains, and
Oh,
it's really nice. So we like to be outside, and obviously being outside has really been healing for me.
Yeah.
So it's perfect.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I was gonna say we benefit from that type of environment too, where there's mountains nearby and plenty of places to walk and hike, and it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's perfect.
So and how long have you guys known each other? Have you been together for a while? And yeah, can you tell us a little?
Yeah. So we've been together. We've known each other for 6 years. We moved really fast. We've been married for a year, but before that we were together for 4.
Okay.
So we've
Yeah.
just
You've been with each
we
other for a while then.
but recently married.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And were you guys planning on having a family? Was that something that you were always thinking about, or was that a little bit more of a
hmm
maybe?
Honestly, we weren't. I wasn't sure if I wanted kids.
Okay.
My husband for sure wanted kids.
Really?
He loves kids, but I think I grew up with that mindset where I wasn't sure if I wanted
Mhm.
kids, but then I found my husband, and then it's when you meet the right person where you're like, okay, I do want kids,
Yeah.
and
It really does make a huge difference. You're like, I can
yeah,
with you. Yes, let's do this.
yes. So we weren't necessarily we wanted after we got married, we wanted to be together, just him and I, for about 2 years, but that, didn't happen. And we weren't necessarily not trying.
Yes. Okay.
We weren't just taking the precautions to prevent pregnancy. I didn't think I was going to be able to have babies just because my a lot of the females in my family aren't able to conceive.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so I thought maybe that was gonna be, me.
Right.
Um, but I was on birth control while we were together.
Hmm.
But I stopped taking birth control right when we got married. So I was on birth control for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I know that when you get on birth control and you do get off of it, it takes a while for your hormones to start to
Yeah.
go back to normal. So after birth control, it was probably 6 months post birth control that I got pregnant with Tommy.
Okay. And you weren't not preventing it, but you weren't also really expecting it, sounds like.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it.
So tell me what made you think that you were pregnant and
I still remember that day. I was waiting for my period to come,
yeah,
and I'm a supervisor, and I just thought that I was in a lot of stress, and my period was not coming
right.
because of that.
Huh?
Um, and then for a second, I felt ill, like I felt like I had the body aches and headaches, and I honestly thought I had COVID. I was like,
Oh,
I have COVID. This is what this is. This is why I feel really sick, and maybe this is why my period hasn't, started. And my husband, he was like, no, I think you should just take a pregnancy test or, just so you could stop stressing about it, just, do it. And he actually bought the pregnancy test for me.
you did.
Um, and I honestly didn't want to take it because in my mind, there was no way I could be pregnant. There's no way I could be pregnant. But I took it one morning before work. I had to do some relief work at a clinic, and I was like, I'm just gonna take it because I'm gonna be thinking about it all day. And I went to the restroom. I remember thinking before that whenever I would take a pregnancy, I was going to record because I wanted it to be captured like on film.
Yeah.
But I didn't think I was going to be pregnant, so I didn't even turn on my phone.
Oh,
I just I just took it. And I remember, I peed on the stick and I let it sit there, started brushing my teeth and looked at it and it said pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't believe it. My hands were shaking. And my I got out of the restroom and my husband asked me, "Did you take the pregnancy test?" And I was like, "No, I haven't taken it yet."
you.
I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to make it something nice and tell him in like a special way, especially for our first baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I would have been like trying to yeah, I would have been so excited.
It was really hard to keep it all day, but when I got off work before he got home. So I quickly like put the sticks in like our drawer with socks
Oh,
and we were gonna go eat dinner and I
mhm.
told him, "Oh my gosh, I'm not feeling well. Can you please grab me a tea bag in that drawer?" And I had already set the camera to
You
record this
did.
whole thing. Yeah, and he opened the drawer and for some reason he wasn't seeing it. He was looking for the tea bags
Yeah.
and I told him, "Do you not see it?" And he goes, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you don't see it. And he was like, what? And then he looked down and he was like, oh my God. And it was my husband, he's a goofball, so he was like he couldn't stop laughing. It was just
Oh,
like so
that's
whether it was just so incredible that all he could do was laugh
oh,
because he couldn't, express anything else. And he was like, "When did you find out?" And I told him in the morning. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me? You should have told me." But it was so beautiful. I'll
oh,
never forget it.
oh. I just think this. I can picture that, just like laughing and just so much excitement for the two of
Yes.
you. How fun is
Yes.
that? Um,
Yeah.
I do want to just really quickly interject that this was so at the time of our recording, Tommy was born just a few months ago,
Yes, he was born in December
in December of
2024.
2024. And,
Mhm.
and so it really, when you talked about, oh, maybe it's COVID or whatever, I mean, generally the big craziness of COVID has gone away, but we still, like, there are a lot of cases still
Yes,
popping up. And
yes,
so that totally made sense for you,
yeah,
like, maybe it's just like I'm starting to get body aches because I'm getting sick,
yes,
you know? Um,
yes. It was
uh,
definitely more like that. I was like, if it's COVID, I'm just probably going through it because I did get COVID back when it was a
when it
big
was, yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
And it kind of felt similar, like with body
Yeah,
aches
yeah,
for me. I did have really bad body aches when I did get COVID back then. So I just assumed it was COVID.
yeah.
And at the time, all of my family, except for my husband and I, they had flown out of the country because my dad's mom had passed away. So I wasn't really close to her that much. So my
Hmm.
husband and I decided to stay. And it was, I couldn't tell my mom because she wasn't here. I couldn't tell my dad or my sister or my brother. So I waited for them to come home and I told them.
Oh, exciting.
Yes.
Did you do anything fun for that, or did you just
Yes, I did.
did?
My parents came back, I believe, a day before Mother's Day.
Okay.
And yes, because I found out I was pregnant in April. And yeah, and my parents came back in May. And I had bought my mom flowers. And I put two little baby socks in the flowers. And I told, I had my sister, I had to quickly go into my sister's room to tell her, you need to record, I'm pregnant. And she's like, what? And and mind you, my little sister, she's gonna be 14, so she's really, really young.
Okay.
Um, and she's like, "What? You're pregnant? What?" And I was like, "I know. Just go record. Go, yeah." And so she ran to the living room. She took out her phone, and I told my dad and my mom, "Oh, go see the flower. They're so beautiful. Like there's something in there." And my dad was the first person who saw the socks, and he obviously was very emotional because he had just lost his mom. So he just started crying and hugged me, and he was like, thank you so much for making me a grandpa." And I could tell he needed a little bit of light after losing his mom, and I this definitely was it for him. So he was just so overwhelmed, and my mom, of course, she was so excited. And this is the first grandbaby, so she was super, super excited.
Yeah, that oh, so
Yeah.
fun. That's a really cute way to and like how oh, that just is that's
Yeah, it was
wonderful.
wonderful.
And and then you of course you I love how you told your little sister so quickly, I'm pregnant and
Yeah.
come video.
Yes.
That's super funny. Okay, then did you have an OBGYN that time to start checking in with? Did you do any blood work at the beginning? Anything like that to at when after you
Um,
got pregnant?
yes, I did get, and my original plan was a midwife.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I wanted to birth at home.
Mhm.
That's always something I wanted to do, but unfortunately, every time I would reach out to a midwife, they weren't available during that time because it was my due date was December 26th,
Oh,
and it was Christmas time, and every time I would reach out, it would be like, sorry, I'm not available at that time. Sorry, I'm not available. So unfortunately, I had
hmm.
to, I went to an OB.
Mhm.
I did, and I got my first ultrasound when I was about almost 9 weeks. I
Okay.
was 8 weeks and 5 days. and my husband did go with me. We were really excited. For some reason, I think my mom was like, maybe these pregnancy tests were like a fake positive, and there's nothing,
We
there's
got to double
not
check.
going to be anything, there's not going to be anything in there.
Yeah.
But it was, it was beautiful. We heard the heartbeat, and he was just like a little gummy bear. He was so tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But he was measuring perfect at the
good.
time. Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned before that you were maybe feeling a little sick. Were you still feeling a little bit of that morning sickness or not?
No, I honestly, throughout my pregnancy, fortunately, I never really got nauseous
Mm-hmm.
or, vomited. It was more of a headache.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they went away maybe once I was about 10 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So
So
not
rather
terrible, it
quick.
sounds like. Yeah.
No, no.
Okay. Okay. So everything looked good at that 9 week
Hmm.
in with your OB and the ultrasound, which is so exciting. And then
Yeah.
were you at were you a high risk or anything of that nature? Were they concerned about anything at all?
No, my OB, he wasn't concerned about anything, honestly. He said, you're young, you're healthy,
Mhm.
you seem to be in good shape, and he'd never thought anything other than that, if that makes sense. He was always, my appointments were rather quick, always, always. In and out, check the heartbeat is great, you're gaining weight at the perfect rate. Keep doing what you're doing.
Hi.
We'll see you again in 2 weeks. It was like that most of the time.
Pretty straightforward and lots of
Yeah,
doctors.
very straightforward. I do remember this one time I did have a doctor's appointment, and maybe I think I was 23, 24 weeks,
Mhm.
and my OB, my doctor, he was out that day, so I was seen by a PA,
Okay. Yeah.
and her nurse. So it wasn't my usual nurse. And before they bring you in, they take your blood pressure, and she took my blood pressure with like a digitally,
Mhm.
and she was like, your blood pressure is slightly high. I'm gonna retake it again. So she retook it again, and she's like, yeah, it's still slightly high. Let me do it manually.
Yeah.
So she did it manually, and she was like, yeah, it's slightly high. I'm gonna go ahead and let the PA know. Don't worry, it's nothing crazy, but it's just very slightly high.
Yeah.
So me being a first time mom, I didn't really think there was much of significance to having a like high blood pressure. Like honestly, didn't know. The PA came in, and she told me, we did before you came to your appointment, did you go for like a run, or were you working out, or
Yeah.
like anything
Yeah.
like that? Because I was very active throughout my whole pregnancy. I continued to go to the gym. We
Yeah.
did CrossFit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I
Those are
told her
hard
no.
workouts.
Yeah, I told her no, just a little bit of coffee in the morning. And she's like, yeah, just take it easy. It's not crazy high, but we want to prevent preeclampsia.
Okay.
Um, Honestly, at the time, I was like, I don't know what this lady's talking about, but okay.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so that was just one time that happened. After that, all my blood tests were coming back fine. My urine samples were fine. I did have to take my glucose test 3 times.
You did?
Yes,
Oh,
it was so horrible, Winter. It was
you
so
you
horrible.
guys, seriously, the glucose test is so you're like, I'm just drinking straight sugar, and you had to do it 3 times. Like, really?
Yes, three
Oh,
times. So the first time, my OB said, okay, it's time for you to take your glucose test. And so I did the 3 hour one. That was my first time. I passed it, everything was great. And then I got a call from the nurse saying I did it too soon, which I was very confused because they told me to do it. So I
yeah.
was really confused. And they're like, we're gonna have you do just the 1 hour this time.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. I went back and, had that sugary drink. And then this time it was slightly high. So they're
Oh,
like, let's just do it again one more
one more time.
time. And the last time I finally it was good. Everything was good.
Okay.
But other than
Oh,
that, my blood work tests are fine.
okay.
I did do I think I'm jumping around a little bit, but I did do the genetic testing.
You did. Okay.
Yes,
Was that kind of around 9 to 12-ish weeks?
it was about 18 weeks I
Oh,
did
okay. So
it.
you okay.
Yeah.
And
Everything was perfect.
were you looking at just kind of like I know that they have a basic one, a general one that rules out kind of the major
Hmm.
genetic abnormality type things. So and it looks good, that one.
Yes, everything looked good. It did also have the gender on it
Okay.
as well.
Did you guys
Uh,
want to find out?
I did. I wanted to, and so did my husband, but because this was my mom's first grandchild, she really wanted us to have a really small, like, gender reveal type. And
Okay.
I'm very socially, I have really bad social anxiety,
Yeah.
and I didn't want, and I'm very private,
Hmm.
so I didn't want any like I didn't want a lot of people there. I just wanted my parents
Yeah.
and my aunts and my grandparents and my husband and I. So it was the way she did it. It was just a small cake, and when you cut it, it was blue. So
Yeah.
that's how we found out.
Yay.
It was a boy.
Yay. And were you feeling one way or the other if it was going to be a boy or girl?
Honestly, I think I always felt like I was meant to be a boy mom.
Oh, really?
Yes, but my husband, he is definitely a girl's dad. He really is.
Yeah.
He has twin nieces, and he is so good with them, and he's just really gentle.
Yeah.
Um, I was okay with the boy, but at the same time, I wanted that for my husband. I
Yeah.
wanted him to have a girl, but Tommy was meant for me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so it is kind of fun to find out what you
Yeah.
think. So, okay. And so you're going along and I am assuming that you had the anatomy scan around 20-ish weeks.
Hmm.
And did your husband get to go with you to that one?
Yes.
He ended up going, okay. Can you
Yeah,
tell me
he did.
how that scan went?
Yeah, so the way that my OB clinic works is every time we go in, he does
The
a
basic
scan, the
ultrasound, right?
basic
Yeah.
ones, but
Yeah.
this one was obviously more in depth. Everything was great. Nothing nothing abnormal came up other than he was breached at the time,
Okay.
but at so many weeks, it's still a lot of time for him to
Yep.
turn.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was super active,
Oh, really?
always moving a lot. He never let me sleep at night. He was That was his like favorite time to be active. Yeah, nothing came out on the scan that would indicate something was wrong.
Okay. He looks
Yeah,
good. He
he
was
looks
measuring
great.
okay.
Yes, he
Okay.
was. Yeah.
And everything looks good for you too, because I think they do what placenta, they look at the placenta, they
Hmm.
make sure everything's looking good.
Yeah, the placenta was good in the ultrasound, but I don't want to jump too ahead to when there's a little bit more to the placenta
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going along, and as we get a little bit farther after that, they start being a little bit more regular in your appointments, and those are
Hmm.
still. It sounds like those are still checking out okay.
Yeah, honestly, I started to feel this was my first pregnancy, so I was quite oblivious to what was normal, what was not normal,
Yes,
what,
you
you
don't know.
know,
Like this
I
is
don't know.
yeah, it's
I
your first
didn't
time.
know. Yeah, and so I had believe it's my 34-week appointment.
Hmm.
I started to feel like I don't know if I needed to use the restroom, like I had to really need to use the restroom, or I was gassy, and I just assumed that it was gas. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't know what a contraction felt like. So, and then everyone would tell me, when it's a contraction, you will know, like they're very painful. You will know when it's a
Hmm.
contraction. So I was like, this is probably just gas. I was 30, I was 34 weeks. But it would go away. Like it wasn't something that would linger all day.
Hmm.
It would go away. And the following day, I had my OB appointment, and I was telling him about it, and he was like, it could be Braxton Hicks. Your body's just practicing, for that day, your 34 weeks, and your body's just doing what it's meant to do. And he did. asked me, I did choose to have my cervix checked at the time, and he did tell me I was 2.5 centimeters already dilating.
Oh,
Yeah.
at 34 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Was,
So
was that a bit of
he
concern to your
he
doctor?
didn't seem concerned at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
He just said, your body's preparing. I don't think, I think you should continue to do what you're doing. Your baby just might come a little sooner than full term. Um, because originally we had talked about how this was my first baby, and a lot of times it goes like all the way to your 41
Yeah.
week,
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when he checked my cervix, he was like, okay, he will definitely come before that. So, continue what you're doing. And at the time, I believe that once you hit like your 30s, you go every week
Yeah.
to see your OB. So yeah, the following week, same thing, but this time it felt more like period cramps.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and
So that was week
I
35 then, right?
yes, about week 35, I did start to feel like period cramps, but I remember this one day specifically. I was 35 weeks and I was driving to work, and it was early morning, and yeah, I felt like I was getting period cramps, and I'm very passive about things. I don't like to make things a big deal. But I remember calling my mom and I told her, I'm getting like these weird period cramps type of situation. And I don't know if it's because I got my cervix checked and like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And she was like, call your doctor, just, let them know that this is how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so I did. I got home from work and I called the office, and I told her what was going on. She put me on hold, and then she told me, you know, the doctor's saying that if they're persistent, go to the hospital, but if they're gone, just, relax and, just kind of lay down, and we'll see you soon. But if it continues, go to the hospital.
Okay. Were those cramps pretty painful? I mean, did you feel, because some people's period cramps are really painful and others are
Hmm.
like, this is uncomfortable, but I know I have my period, you know?
Yeah, no, my cycle has never been super painful. Like my periods have never been painful. But these period cramps, well, what I compared them to,
Right.
um, they weren't. I just have a really high pain tolerance.
Hmm.
So for me, they weren't painful. They were just uncomfortable.
Okay.
But they went away. They went away like almost, I want to say by the time I got home from work, they were gone.
Okay.
So I listened to, the doctor, and they went away, just, relax, and, we'll see you soon. My 35-week appointment, I went, I believe yeah, I'm sorry, I think it was my 35, 36. I'm not quite sorry. It was a long, it
Yeah.
was like a
No,
while
no,
ago.
yeah.
Um, at my 36-week appointment, I believe, um, I went and checked the heartbeat. It was perfect. It was at 140.
Mhm.
Um, and doctor said he looked great. And
Was he in the breech position still? Or,
no, not anymore.
okay, so he had flipped.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I remember telling him that day, I feel like there's a bowling ball, like I'm like I feel him really, really low. And
Oh,
he was like, let's check. And, he checked my cervix, and at 36 weeks, he told me, "You're now 3 centimeters dilated." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I was so excited because I was like, "He's gonna come soon. Like I don't
yeah.
have to wait much longer."
Yeah.
But 36 is still not considered full term.
Right.
37 is,
Yeah. Getting close.
But he told me, "Keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully, this baby will come soon." And he also told me, "Are you feeling?" I don't know if my brain is making this up, but I do remember him telling me, "Are you're feeling all of this, right?" And he showed me on the ultrasound that his hands are moving, and he's like, "You're feeling this. You're feeling him move, right? You're feeling all of it." And I was like, "Yeah," but I don't honestly think that by that time I feel like I stopped feeling him move so much. I wasn't feeling him move
Mm,
quite as strong, if that makes sense.
yeah.
His movements weren't super, super strong like they normally are.
Okay, so you were feeling him move um,
Mhm,
earlier in the pregnancy pretty strongly. I mean, and
mhm.
what were you counting kicks? Were you just trying to note when he was active, because you've mentioned that he was pretty active at nighttime.
Yeah, really
You.
active. Yeah, I regret it so much, but I never counted his kicks, and I even had an app that would remind me to count kicks, but honestly, I just knew he moved a lot at night.
Okay.
And if I felt him move, so he really liked when I would eat Neapolitan ice cream, and I had that almost every night. I know that's terrible.
No,
That's terrible.
I mean, you got cravings for that. I get it.
And I every time I would eat, he would move like crazy,
Yeah.
like always super moving. And yeah, so yeah, I stopped. I guess his movements became less, not as strong, but yeah, so I
And
didn't
you
think
and you
anything
kind
of
of
it.
and I was gonna say you kind of noticed it maybe around that 36 weeks when your doctor was saying, "This is
Yeah,
what he's doing." You're feeling it, right?
yeah, and my mind was like, I remember it was a quick response to yes, 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 I am. But now that I think about it, I think he started to slow down. But the way that my brain, processed it or made it logical was that I'm 5'2" and I'm tiny and there's not a lot of room in there.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just assumed not a lot of room. He doesn't have a lot of room to move either.
yeah.
Um, and didn't think, anything that he was. I didn't think he was in distress. I didn't think anything like that. And then my 37-week appointment, same thing. Went to, I always had morning appointments. And I remember I went in and he checked him quickly with the ultrasound. Heart rate still looked good. It was at 140, I believe. He looks healthy. He is really low, so he might come anytime soon. He also did a cervical check, and I was at 4 centimeters
Oh, yeah,
dilated.
yeah.
So the doctor did tell me he could come anytime now. You know, if you feel like you need to go to the doctor, go to the hospital, but keep doing what you're doing because if you could labor most at home, that's great. You don't have to be at the hospital for that long. You're in good shape. And sorry, I think I'm skipping something really important. That 2 days before my 37-week appointment, I was cleaning my house and I started to feel really dizzy. I had like a really bad headache. Um, and my right eye, I started to like see little specks, like little
Oh,
tiny specks.
floaties or something.
Yeah, little floaties. And I kept like, I wear contacts
Yeah.
normally. So it's like this is something in my contact. But then I felt like it wasn't going away. And then my hands were really swollen, my feet were really swollen. I just thought I'm big, I'm
It just
big.
happened. So, but you did notice that it was like, I'm really swollen today.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed it. I mean, my feet were normally swollen,
Yeah.
but the doctor didn't. He's like, this is part of pregnancy. A lot of women get their, feet
Yeah.
gets swollen.
Totally.
It's normal. But before my 37-week appointment, those past 2 days, my hands were getting swollen too. Like my hands, I would wake up and I remember like my ring finger, my wedding band was really, really tight. And I remember just, I couldn't like it just
Yep.
felt like my hands were swollen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started getting the headache and I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel really sick. Like I feel really sick. For some reason, I don't know why I didn't think to go to the doctor. I just I just assumed I have a headache. I've been cleaning the house and maybe I smelled a chemical and it made me feel like this.
Yeah. And
I
was
want to say I'm a
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna just ask, with the dizziness anyway, was that kind of a short spell, or was it like, oh, I'm feeling really dizzy, I gotta sit down, and it
Mhm.
was you were dizzy for a little time?
No, it was a short amount of time. I
Okay.
remember feeling, oh crap, I feel a little dizzy, and then it went away, but then my eye thing
Started to
started.
okay.
Yes. And then after that I just felt like a headache.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like super crazy.
Okay.
I told my mom about it and she was like, you need to go check your blood pressure because we want to make sure you don't have preeclampsia.
Yeah.
We need to make sure. go to Rite Aid and go quickly
Go
check,
do the little, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I did check it, and it was honestly by 1 point high. Like nothing drastic. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's super, super high.
Yeah.
Um, and so then, yeah, and then 2 days after I went to my 37-week appointment, I did tell him about the headaches. I
Okay.
did. I told my nurse.
And you
Um,
and you had felt better by then, by the
by
time
that
you
time, yes.
okay. Okay, so
Yeah,
it went away.
it went away.
No more floaty
Yeah,
situation
no
in
more.
your
Yeah, it
eye.
went away.
Okay.
hmm
Okay.
And my nurse brought me in, and she, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And I did tell her I was getting a headache. The vision on my eye kind of went a little blurry. My hands are swollen, my feet are swollen. Um, you know, I she told me, "Did you get your blood pressure checked?" And I said, "Yeah." And I told her, I forgot exactly what no, the number was, but she's like, "Okay, yeah, that doesn't seem super, super concerning, but let me take your blood pressure." And she was an old school nurse, so she did it manually.
Manually.
Yeah. She was like, "Okay, yeah, no, it's normal. I'll let the doctor know though." So doctor came in, and I told him about how I was feeling, and he's like, "Yeah, we would just want to make sure it's not preeclampsia." So I was like, "Well, then, like, how do I know?
Yeah.
you know,
Tell me more. Yeah.
yeah, how do I know?" And he's like, "If you take like medication for just a headache, and if that headache doesn't go away with like a pain reliever, then definitely go to the hospital."
Okay.
But at that time, in my appointment, I was feeling fine. So I was like, "No, I feel fine now." It was just, that those couple of past days I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
He checked the baby. Baby was great.
Okay.
I was 4 centimeters dilated. He said, "Go home, continue to do what you're doing."
Any contractions or like you said, some of the tightening or cramping, anything like that?
hmm I was, but again, I just assumed it was Braxton Hicks.
Okay.
And I even asked him, I said, "Doctor, how do I know whether it's a Braxton Hicks and a real contraction?
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know." And he showed me, he's like, "If it's a Braxton Hicks, you're gonna feel it right here." And he motioned where. He
Okay.
said, "If it's a contraction, you're gonna feel it like this on your belly. Like you're gonna feel tight on your belly."
Yeah.
And he's like, I was like, "Okay, you know, I don't feel like all over my belly, so it's for sure Braxton Hicks in my mind."
Yeah.
Um, so I had my next appointment at 38 weeks, but before that day, a couple of days before my 38-week appointment, I remember my back hurting a lot.
Mm.
And just my lower back was hurting a lot. And I remember I was on my yoga ball, and I would like kind of bounce a little bit on it, kind of just to feel like to relieve the back
Yeah.
aches.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't think that I didn't think you could get contractions on your back. Like I didn't
Oh,
think that was a thing.
okay.
Um, so I just felt like I'm heavy. I'm carrying,
Yeah.
a
And
baby,
he's feeling low too, right?
yeah, and he's
Okay.
feeling really low. So, you know, that's just all that it for me, that's all that it was. I called my mom. My mom, "Yeah, let's go to the doctor. Yeah, let's go to the hospital." But I was so stubborn, and, "No, mom, I'm fine." Like I don't want to I almost felt like if I were to go to the hospital, I was gonna like go for no reason, and these nurses were gonna be like, "You just came and wasted time," like that's just how I felt about it. So she was like, "Okay, if you continue to feel like you have a backache, you continue to feel like this, let me know. I'll get off of work and I'll go with you." At the time, my husband was working pretty far, so I was home alone for a bit.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and they definitely subsided. They weren't super. I felt better. The backaches went away, and I was feeling so much better.
Okay.
And yeah, and then on 2 days before my 38-week appointment, I told my husband, "I think this baby's gonna come. I think let's just go for a really long walk or a hike where, I could, keep moving, and he could just come already because I'm tired of feeling like this."
Yeah. Okay, you're like,
And so we went for a hike.
And
I
this is in like November, December, right?
this
Okay.
was early December.
Early December. And it's still
Early December.
nice outside-ish where you guys are
Yes.
at, so it's not,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
It was perfect. Yes, it was
Yeah.
perfect. And
Oh, yes. Can I ask you a quick question before I
yeah.
forget this? Did you guys end up having a baby shower?
Yes.
You did?
Yes, my mom's sister, my aunt, she threw it for us.
Oh, that's awesome. When did you guys
Yeah,
have
it's
that?
we had that like about 30 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
family and some friends and
Yes,
such?
family, really close friends. Like I said, I'm very private. I'm not very social. I'm socially, I guess, socially awkward. I get really bad anxiety, like being in like,
Yeah.
I guess the center of attention, I guess. And
Oh,
I
it
just,
is so awkward.
yeah, yeah. So I just wanted something super small. But my aunt, she likes to go all out.
Is she, yeah, she's the
Yeah,
party planner of the family,
she
yeah.
is. Yeah, she's amazing. I love her. And yeah, so it was the baby shower was thrown by my mom's sisters and my mom. So it was beautiful. Yeah, it was
Yay.
awesome. Yeah,
Awesome. It's always nice to be able to celebrate as a family.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, sorry, I didn't want to forget that because I was like, that is, yeah, you got to talk about the
Yeah,
everybody getting together because it is really nice to be able to
yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, about 2 days before my 38-week appointment, I think this was on a Saturday. Yes, Saturday or Sunday. Um, yeah, we went for a walk. I still was feeling quite uncomfortable. I just felt uncomfortable. Obviously, I'm big and he's really low, and I feel like I'm waddling around,
Yeah.
and I was very uncomfortable. I remember we had to go to my husband's dad's house for like a little Christmas party,
Mhm.
and I remember I didn't want to go, not because I didn't want to go, but because I wasn't feeling super comfortable.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable. I felt fat. I
Yeah.
felt
Mhm.
um I just didn't feel good. But I put leggings on, a big sweater, and we went. And throughout the whole time, I just felt so uncomfortable. I felt like really gassy and but it wasn't like I was farting. It was more like I felt like it was trapped gas.
And
Like
yeah,
that's how I felt.
just feels, yeah.
And I remember getting up and walking and everyone asking me, "Are you okay?" And yeah, I'm just uncomfortable. I'm like, "Oh, baby's almost here." And
Mhm.
it's very much like that. Yeah, and we got home and went to sleep. And I realized he was letting me sleep this time, but that was unusual. So I was like, no, he's really active at nighttime. Like, why
Yeah.
isn't he super active now? Like, I remember feeling him, but I no longer felt like I was feeling him with like hands. I started to feel his butt up on my ribs. Like, started to feel him really up here.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like he's up here, he's stretching.
Yeah.
So that's what I considered like a movement.
Movement. Okay.
Um, I guess I also wanted to point, I think this is quite important. I should have mentioned this earlier, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I felt very disconnected from my baby. Um,
Oh,
like I didn't feel like a connection with him. And I remember asking some of my cousins at the time that were pregnant, did you feel, like right away as soon as you found out you were pregnant, how that you loved, you were so in love with this baby? And they're like, yes, like with the first ultrasound, I immediately like fell in love and I felt like there was something wrong with me because I wasn't feeling that connection with my baby.
yeah.
I just felt pregnant.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. I'm pregnant and there's a baby in there, but I didn't feel like an instinct. It's gonna sound so bad, but an instinct like love. Like it didn't feel like that for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to feel that so bad, but it was not happening. And I remember that I even told this to the doctor,
Mhm.
and he's like, it's normal to feel like this. A lot of women do feel instant connections with their baby, but a lot of the time they feel like that because they wanted this baby so bad and they feel instant connections with them. He's like, versus you, you weren't necessarily planning for him, and you are a first time mom, and it's normal to feel like this, and you do have history of depression, and you do have history of anxiety, and all that could come into play with being pregnant. And I had a body dysmorphia too, so he assumed maybe like I wasn't comfortable being pregnant. I was always a really small person, so maybe like I didn't like looking fat or feeling like this.
Yeah.
So he was, trying to explain to me. So he did tell me I can prescribe you with the lowest dose of Zoloft,
Mhm.
but it's up to you if you want to take it. If you feel like completely not like good, then take the Zoloft. But if you feel like you could kind of just power through it, then don't take it. But you do have to wean yourself off of it. The baby is also going to be taking a little bit or I forgot exactly how he was explaining that to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be giving my my baby any type of like
Yeah.
medication. So I opted not, I picked up the prescription, but I opted not to take it.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, yeah, sorry. So yeah, that was kind of like my pregnancy um, relationship, I guess, with my baby.
Now,
Um,
kind of along the lines of that, then, when you guys did find out that you were having a boy, did you guys have names? Did you start calling him Thomas or Tommy early, or was that something that came later?
it came later.
Okay.
Yeah. It was more like baby.
Okay.
And then my best friend, she called him Tadpole, because in the first
Yep.
ultrasound they look like a little tadpole.
Yeah.
So she just called him Tadpole or Taddy, and that's kind of just what I went with,
Oh,
Taddy,
that's cute.
Tadpole. Yeah. But baby names came later.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely later.
Were you guys
We
keeping?
had two in mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you keeping a list then of
Yeah,
some?
we had two in mind. We liked Thomas and we liked Abraham.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So just trying to figure
Um,
out which one would
yeah.
fit. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned not feeling connected to your baby, because we don't hear tons of people talk about that, and I think it does happen more often than we think.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting that you noticed that.
Yeah, and I was like, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me because I'm not feeling any connection with him. Like I know he's my baby. I know that he's in here, but
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like an instinct connection
Hmm.
with him. And I would ask my friends who had babies, my cousins who were pregnant at the time, and it was very much, oh no, I love him so much, or I love her so much already. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me, you know?
Hmm.
Um, I figured that once I had him, that instant love was just going to, come.
Be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so my 37, I was 37 weeks, and like I said, we were trying to progress, trying to go into labor already. I was 4 centimeters already dilated. Um, and I had an upcoming appointment um that Tuesday after, like the Christmas parties, and
Okay.
um
But that
so
night you noticed that he was not as
mhm,
active as
as
he
active.
usually
Yeah.
is on
Yeah.
that night.
Yes, and so that that Monday before, I had I remember that I had gone to the grocery store. I felt heavy. I felt uncomfortable. And I also remember that I had just applied for a disability. I had just applied for it.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and then that night maybe I was a little uncomfortable, but everyone kept telling me, and I shouldn't have listened, but everyone kept telling me, if you could sleep through the pain, they're not real contractions. If you're able to sleep through them, a contraction is really painful. Trust me, you'll know. Trust me, you'll know. And it was always like that.
Yeah.
So I slept, I was able to sleep through that night on, through Monday night. And Tuesday morning, I had two appointments. I had an ultrasound, but this was at a different facility.
Okay.
Just because the doctor, I believe they were booked at my OB with ultrasound, so he had me go to like a sister clinic
Mhm.
type. So I had an appointment at 7:30 in the morning, and my husband, he we woke up, got ready. I still remember that on the drive there, I still felt his butt up to my ribs, and he's moving in my head. So we got to the ultrasound place and signed papers, and they had us wait for a bit because they were waiting on their ultrasound person
Mhm.
to show up. So we were waiting there for about maybe like 30 minutes, or a little longer. And they brought us into the room. My husband was with me, and there's always two that came. There's two. So the actual ultrasound, and then someone else typing the notes for her as she says them out loud. So she started doing her thing. The monitor was almost facing me, but not really. It was like at an angle.
Yeah.
And she was, talking about, the head, shape and measuring this, and she was measuring things. And then she went to the heart, and she just got really quiet. And my instincts were like, she's really quiet, what's going on? She got the tech got really quiet. And I looked at my husband, and he always has a way of keeping me calm. And he kind of just shook his head to, like, calm down, And she asked me, "Have you felt him move this morning?" And I was like, a little bit." And she goes, "Okay, like, how long ago did you feel him kick?" And I said, "Actually, on our way here, like right before we parked, I felt his butt up by my ribs." And she's like, "Okay." She's like, "I'm gonna go get my supervisor." And I said, "Okay." I looked at my husband, and I panicked. It started to set in, and I was really trying, because I know if I panicked, it was gonna affect my baby as well. So I tried to stay calm as much as I could. Yeah, so she went to go get her supervisor, and I am in the medical field, maybe not human, but in
You are.
animal and medicine. And I know when I went to go get my supervisor, it wasn't for a good reason. So she went to go get her supervisor, and it was another, I think she was like the lead tech, and she came in and she was like, "I'm gonna just check your heart, the baby's heart really quick, and I need your risk as well." So she was taking my pulse with her hand, and then also her other hand was on my belly, and she was like, "You need to go to the hospital right now. You need to go right now. Do you want us to call an ambulance?" And I was like, "Wait, what's going on?" And she's like, "Your baby's heart rate is in the low 50s. Like, it's really, really low. That it's not your pulse, because it's his. You need to go to the hospital right now. Like, you need to leave right now. Do you want us to call the ambulance? And where are you going to give birth at?" And at the time, I was like, "Wait, like, what's
Yeah.
going on?" And she's like, "His heart rate is really low. You need to go now. Like, you need to leave now." And thankfully, my hospital was like 5, 8 minutes away. And I was like, my husband's like, "No, we could drive there. Like, we could drive." And she was like, "Are you sure you guys are okay to drive? Like, you guys need to get there now as soon as possible." My husband was like, "Yes, yes, like, we could leave right now." And so we got in the car, and then panic set in. I couldn't, control it. And I remember the first person I needed to call was my mom. And I called my mom, and I said, "Mom." And she's like, "What's wrong?" She instantly knew something was wrong. I was like, "Mom, his heart rate is low. Like, it's really low, and I'm going to the hospital right now." And she's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then I couldn't talk anymore. And so my husband was like, "We're going to take her. The baby's heart rate is low. Please don't panic. We're going to go to the hospital, and we'll let you know as soon as we get there." And that's the last time I remember talking to my mom. And we get to the hospital, and then just to put the cherry on top of this is there was no parking. And so we had to like park far, and thankfully the hospital has like little shuttles that take you to like the front. And one of the shuttles saw us, and I think he saw the panic in us, and he dropped us off in the front. We didn't even go through like the front desk to check in. We went straight to the second floor. And I remember when we got to the second floor, I pressed the button to be buzzed in, and she was like, I remember the intercom, and she was like, "How can I help you?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I was told to come to the hospital. I came from the ultrasound," and she didn't even let me finish talking when she opened up, the doors, and she goes, "Did you just come from a clinic?" And yes, and she's like, "Okay." And I remember she like grabbed my hand and she like took me straight into like this little room. It had like a gurney and had an ultrasound, but it was really small. It almost felt like a closet.
Yeah.
Um, and she was like, "When did you fall? Did something happen? Were you like did you like?" She was just like, I don't remember, but they were just like she was like asking me a bunch of questions, and I was like, "No, no, no, I don't know." And my husband was sitting there with me, and that's when I knew he went into shock because he just went like white. And then a bunch of doctors came into that little room, so it was crowded in there. There was like three doctors, three nurses. Everyone was already gowned up. Like everyone was their hair, they were already in their caps. They're already, ready. And that's one thing I do remember. They were already dressed up in like surgical scrubs. And, they were it was I could tell everyone was panicked because they started dropping things. Like they just started dropping like certain equipment. And then I remember this doctor, and I want to say her name because she deserved it. Dr. Sawyer was amazing. She told everyone, "Shut up, stop talking, stop moving." And she checked the heart, and she was like, "He's in the 30s." Like, and then it got even more quiet, and she goes, "We need to move now. We need to move now." And she's placing my catheter. The doctor's placing my catheter. She hasn't even finished taping it when they're like rushing me. And so she's holding on to my catheter. She's holding on to my catheter, and everyone is running with me, and they're running me to the operating room. And she's like, "We're going to put you under anesthesia. This baby needs to come out right now." And, I'm just like, "Wait, what? Like, what?" And I get into the operating room, and there's surgeons standing there, and they move me to the operating table. They start taking all of my clothes off. They start cutting things off, and, take off my underwear and take off everything. And I remember the surgeon, he asked me, "Did you fall?" And at that time, everything felt like I was hearing everyone from a distance. Like everything felt very echoey. And I was like, "No, I didn't fall." And I remember they put the oxygen mask on me, and I couldn't breathe. And I kept telling him, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And then they kept telling me, just try to breathe, try to breathe. And then I remember they're like, "Okay, you're gonna go to sleep now." And then that's it. I went to sleep. I don't remember. And I woke up with like a sore throat. And I remember feeling like I was like, "Oh my gosh." I remember feeling like my throat was hurting, and I woke up, and I remember the first I remember seeing Dr. Sawyer, and she stood out to me because she had this beautiful strawberry blonde hair. And I remember I woke up, and I remember I saw her, and I asked her, "Where's my baby?" She goes, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but he didn't make it." And I remember I remember feeling like this is a dream. I'm still asleep. I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna wake up. And I remember I kept saying, "No, no, no. This is a dream. I'm gonna wake up. I need to wake up, wake up, wake up." And I remember I kept telling myself, "Wake up." And I remember I pinched myself, "Wake up. You need to wake up." And I feel like I fainted because after that, I don't remember when they took me out of recovery and into the regular mom and child area. And I remember I opened my eyes and I saw my husband, and I just saw his face, and I just instantly knew that this was really happening. And he's he told me, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so, so sorry. didn't make it. They did everything that they could. I promise you, they did everything that they could. And I remember saying no, like, no, this is not happening. It feels like a dream. It feels like this didn't happen. Like it's a dream. And I remember saying I want to see him because at the time I still hadn't seen him yet. And I just felt like they were lying to me. Like they're lying to me. Where is he? I need to see him first. Like I need to see him. And my husband, I could tell my husband, he's in it. I know everyone says this about their husbands, but he was so amazing. And so he was definitely holding it together for me. And he was trying to protect me. So at the time he did it, he wasn't sure if he wanted me to see Tommy, but I knew that I wanted to see him. I knew that. And before I even got to see him, my husband asked if I wanted to see my mom and my dad, and I said yes. And I remember my mom came into the room, and the devastation on her face, I think, was just as heartbreaking because this was her first grandbaby, and she was looking forward to having him as well. And I remember that I told her, Mommy, I lost my baby. And she was like, I know, sweetheart. I'm so, so sorry. And I remember she came to me and she kissed me on the forehead. And she was like, everything's gonna be okay. And at the time, nothing felt like it was ever going to be okay. And yeah, I saw my parents, and then I think my husband told the nurses it was okay to bring Tommy in. And I saw him, and I knew in that instinct, this is what love really is. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what everyone talks about. Everyone talks about this, and you just feel this overwhelming sense of love, and this almost feels like a weird like slow motion, like in the movies how everything's really slow motion. That's how I felt when I saw him. And like the first thing I remember is like he was blonde and my husband's blonde. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so blonde and he's so perfect, and he just looked perfect, he just looked perfect. He was still pink, he just looked like he was asleep. And I kept telling Tommy, please wake up, baby, please wake up, please just wake up, please just wake up. And I remember saying this over and over, and obviously he was not waking up. And I remember I hugged him, and he just felt perfect, and he looked perfect. And I remember that he looked like my husband, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he looks just like my husband, like it looks like I just gave birth to my husband. um yeah, and yeah, he just looked nothing like me. He looked just like my husband. He was blonde, and he had blonde eyebrows and blonde eyelashes, and he was just blonde. And I got to hold him, and they did have I think it's called a cuddle cot.
Yeah, a cuddle cot.
Yeah, and so they did have one, so I was able to utilize that for me. My mom got to hold him. She actually asked if she could put a diaper on him. So we said yes, and she put a diaper on him. And my mom's sister, who had planned the baby shower, she came, and she's a photographer. So she naturally, started taking pictures, which at the time I was just like, why? But now
Yeah.
I'm so glad that
Yes.
it happened.
Yeah.
So glad. So she took pictures of all of that. She took pictures. My husband put his first outfit on. So we put this cute little like knitted blue outfit on him for newborn, but it fit Tommy so big because Tommy, he was weighing 6 pounds, 18 inches, which is still good size for
That's
a 30,
yeah.
38 week baby.
Yeah, that is.
Um, but I remember that outfit was like really big on him. Um, yeah, and we changed him, and my husband called his dad, and his dad showed up and also got to meet Tommy, his grandchild. And originally, like I said, I'm a very private person, and my birth plan was just to have my mom and my husband there, and then afterwards let my dad know and my siblings know. But obviously that didn't happen, and my sister came. She was on vacation from school because it was Christmas time, and so she came and my brother came. I'm the oldest, so they're both my baby siblings. My little sister got to hold them, and she doesn't show emotion a lot, but she she cried that day. That's like the first time that as a teenager, that I've seen her cry. And my brother got to hold him and cuddle him, and it was so heartbreaking but so beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
So I allowed everyone to kind of spend time with him, and everyone did get time to spend with him, and it was beautiful. And now that I think about it, I'm glad that they showed up.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
something so special about having your family meet your baby. Like there's is
yeah,
he's part of your family, so
yes,
why wouldn't they want to meet him?
yeah. It was beautiful.
Yes. Did you at that time? How did you guys choose Tommy's name? It wasn't when you woke up uh,
Hmm.
and then you talked to your husband about it, or how tell me how.
Um, so originally, my husband named him Abraham
Oh,
before
really?
I
Before
had
you were
even
awake.
woken up.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was no, he was supposed to be Thomas. And my husband agreed that because I believe my husband, they had asked him when they were cleaning him up, what's his name, and my husband just said Abraham
Yeah. Just
without seeing him yet. So obviously when he saw him, he told me like instantly like, oh my gosh, no, he's Tommy.
he's
Like
Tommy.
his name is Thomas. Yeah. Um, but I guess to backtrack a little bit
Yeah.
of what went on now that time has passed, and I know what went on while I was asleep
Yeah. Can you?
in surgery. Um, so because I was fully put under anesthesia, they had obviously my husband couldn't be in the room,
Yeah.
so they put a chair right outside the operating room, and my husband was seeing everything that was going on because people were coming in and out. So like the doors were like
So
constantly
yeah.
swinging open. He said that they pour iodine all over my belly
Yeah.
and just instantly like cut. He said that he saw a lot of blood, and then he he didn't want to make a scene because he really wanted to be in there with me, but he knew that if he were to start to act erratic, they were going to no longer let him sit there. So he wanted to stay calm because he wanted to be as close to me as possible. So he said that he stayed in that seat, and obviously things were going into his. He was worried, and they finally came out and told him he doesn't have a heartbeat. We're doing everything that we can, but he's not responding to, I think it was epinephrine.
Epinephrine.
Yeah, he's not responding. We gave him a shot of epinephrine. He's not responding to that. We're so sorry. Like he doesn't have a heartbeat and he's not breathing. And my husband told me that he said, "Can you just please try one more time? One more shot of epinephrine, please, please." And so they did, and they came back out and I told him he's still not responding. I think it's maybe you should go in there and try to talk to him. So they allowed my husband to go in the room, and my husband said that he kept talking to him to come back. And he remembers that they started doing CPR on his body. And my husband, he describes it as it looked like they were just, he looked like a rag doll because that's how much like force they were doing, and they told him we're so sorry, but there's, we've done everything that we can and he's not responding anymore. Like he's not responding to anything. So, yeah, and my husband accepted it, and they cleaned him up, and my husband was the first person who got to hold him, and my husband said he was pink and he was beautiful and nothing looked like anything was wrong with him. So
Did they? So when they pulled him out, after they basically they did an emergency C-section on you,
yes.
and they pulled him out. He didn't have a heartbeat because his heart rate was going down quickly.
Yes.
And so did after talking with the doctors, did they say that he didn't have a heartbeat when they pulled him out, or he maybe had a faint one and they just couldn't get it going?
No, he didn't have a heartbeat when they pulled him out, but they just thought that maybe they could bring him back because it might have just stopped like
Yes.
right then and
Okay.
there.
And so that's why they were doing the life-saving measures.
So, when I was reading the report, I saw the doctor's notes, and she basically describes the events up to seeing the heart rate in the 30s, and then she also wrote down that she started to see only a couple valve movements
Oh,
of the heart, and then I was rushed into.
that's one.
hmm And on the nose, she describes it as fetal bradycardia.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Bradycardia
and
just means really like slow
so,
heart rate. Yeah.
yes, when I saw Tommy, the first thing I wanted to do, obviously, I wanted to see his whole body. I just wanted to see him.
Yeah.
Um, and I did see he had like a little weird spot on his leg, on his like the side of his feet, and it was like this black green like little like liquid on his
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh, not really a liquid. I'm sorry, I backtrack. It was more like a smear of something.
Okay. Okay.
Um and but I just assumed it was maybe like fluid stuff that was in my, when he came out.
Yeah.
Didn't think anything of it. But yeah, after I my family got to see him and stuff, and my mom did stay with my husband because they were taking turns to help me get up from the bed and try to walk.
Just as a reminder, you had an
Yeah.
emergency C-section. That's not
Yes.
something you just jump up from. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they took turns. My husband would go home and shower, and my mom would stay, and vice versa. I do remember that I wanted to leave. I just wanted to get out of the hospital, but at the same time, my baby was here, and I knew that I was not going to leave with him. And I got to spend time with Tommy. I had him for about a day and a half,
Mhm.
and I got, to kiss him and to feel his cheeks. And I remember that I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but I was like, I think he's smiling, and because I just felt like his face features were like I don't know, in my mind, I guess your mind is trying to cope with what's going on, and it doesn't know how, and it's playing tricks on you. And yeah, I just like, "Oh, he's smiling," and it was just a lot of that. But then obviously as babies, when they pass, they start to change. Even though I did have the Kotoka, he he wasn't necessarily like, his features weren't changing, like he wasn't peeling or anything like that. His lips were just turning purple,
Yeah, in the dark.
dark, really dark purple, and his skin, he was starting to have discoloration, like splotchy.
Yeah.
And of course, I wanted to keep him with me. I mean, I wanted to take him home, but at some point, I just was seeing him turn purple and more purple, and I just I didn't want to see him deteriorate in front of me. Like I didn't want that, you know. So I think I was in the hospital for about 3 or 4 days. I'm not sure. I don't really remember. Um, but it felt like a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you went in, it was Tuesday for that ultrasound, right? I'm just making sure
Mhm.
that I've got this right. It was Tuesday. You rushed over to the hospital. He was born. What time was he born at?
He was born on 8:34.
Oh man, that was fast. Like
Hmm.
that
That
was
was really, really fast because
really,
my ultrasound appointment was at 7:30,
yeah, that
and so we
is.
rushed. Yes.
And then when did you come out of the anesthesia?
It was about 11 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And then you were in the hospital for several days.
yeah, several days. And I do remember like wanting to go home. For a minute, I was like, I'm just gonna take my baby with me, and no one's gonna know, and
Oh, no
I'm
one's
just
gonna
gonna
know.
take him.
No one's gonna
Yes, no
know.
one, no one's gonna know,
No one's gonna know.
I didn't know where he went. Um, but obviously, that I wasn't being realistic, and I just, I just wanted to feed him so bad. I just wanted to just be a mom, and your first instinct is to like,
Feed your
clothe them and cuddle them and
Yep.
keep them warm.
Warm.
And we're doing, it does the opposite.
Yep, sticking them in a
Yes.
cold cot, which
Yeah.
is great, but also so
Yeah.
opposite of.
Yes. And so at one point, my husband was asleep there was like an extra bed in the suite. Thankfully for me, there wasn't a lot of women giving birth.
Oh, okay.
So
You
it
guys
was
had.
good.
Yeah.
Yes. So my husband was asleep, and I remember I turned around and I told my mom, I want to change his outfit. I want to put him in something else. So we took off the blue outfit and we put him in this like yellow little newborn outfit, and it has like oranges and bananas on it, and it was just so cute. And
Yeah.
I took a picture of him, and I just knew that it was time for me to hand him over because he was definitely turning a little more purple, and I just didn't want to see that anymore. And honestly, I think that was apart from losing him, giving him up was the hardest thing, I think. And I'm sure Winter, it's the hardest thing
The worst.
that you have to do throughout this process is handing over your baby. It feels wrong. It feels unnatural. It feels it feels wrong.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, I couldn't see him change in front of me
Yeah.
anymore. And I told my mom, I think it's time, Mom. And she told me, Are you sure? And I said, Yes, I am sure. She woke up my husband, and he said, Okay, whatever you want. Um, I wanted to make sure that my dad got to say bye to him. So I was going to hand him over once both my dad and his dad showed up so they could say bye to him. So we decided we were going to do it that day, but once everyone got to say bye to him, this was around maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I cuddled him, I kissed him, I said that I loved him, and that I was really sorry that this happened, and that I was really sorry that I didn't go to the hospital sooner, and that I hope that he forgave me. And I told him that I couldn't wait to see him again, and that one day we were going to be together again. And I kissed him. I kissed his lips, his cheeks, his hands, his forehead, and I hugged him so tight. And I put him in the little bassinet, and we called the nurse. And she told me if I was sure. And I said, no one's sure, right? But I was like, he's changing in front of me, and I think this is the best option I have. And my husband asked if he could walk him out with her, and the nurse said, of course you can. And he walked him out, and he came back, and he was holding this white box that all of us lost moms know what that is. And that little box contains, they took off his clothes, so they took off the outfit I put on him, the diaper, and they made sure that we had that for us. And they had taken prints of his feet and his hands and clay prints as well. And it was really, really hard. And I think that also, honestly, I had an amazing team of nurses. They were so amazing. And even though this wasn't an easy thing to go through, they made it just a little bit easier because they were so kind and so empathetic for me and my family. And they treated me with so much grace and kindness. I'm not a super religious person, but I do obviously, my husband is Catholic, and I also grew up Catholic. And I wish I could remember her name, but one of the nurses, she came in and she held my hand and she told me we could pray together. And so she gave a prayer for me, and she cried for me, and she felt for me, and she told me that she was so sorry that this happened. It wasn't just her, it was almost every single one of my nurses that did that for me. And even Dr. Sawyer, she came in before she had to leave because she was done for the week. She came in and she held my hand and she said, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, but I do hope that I get to see you again in a better circumstance. And may God bless you and your family, and may God give you the strength to continue going. And she was sorry. I just couldn't believe how amazing she was, and how amazing the doctors and the nurses were, and how, because you hear everyone's story is a little different. Not everyone is kind, and not everyone is very gentle with someone who's just lost a baby. But my my medical team was amazing. They were incredible, and I will never forget them. I will never forget them. But yeah, we handed him over, and I think I stayed about a day and a half after that because when I'm sure you know, but when you have a C-section, they need you to have a bowel movement before they could completely let you go
Yeah.
home. So I was like, I need to use the restroom because I need to get out of here. I can't be in this
Yep.
hospital without my baby. And I remember I got up, well, obviously with the help of my mom and my husband, and they walked me to the restroom, and I was like, I'm gonna stay here because I need to use the restroom and I need to get out of here. I'm not gonna stay here anymore. I'm not doing that. So I finally had a bowel movement, and I don't know if a lot of women talk about this, but that's really painful. The first bowel movement in general, when you're giving birth, after you've given birth, is super painful.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all not quite right down there.
everything, yes,
Yeah.
super painful. And a different doctor came in and she said, did you have a bowel movement? And I said, and she's like, okay, before I discharge you, we're gonna have you see like the social worker, and you did lose blood, so we're gonna have to put you on iron supplements, and I am gonna send you home with pain medication, because this wasn't like an easy type of C-section.
No.
So you're gonna go home on pain meds, iron supplements. But yes, once you see your social worker and she gives me the all clear, I'll go ahead and discharge you. So a social worker came in, and honestly, that talking to her, I don't really remember a lot of it because I feel like I kind of zoned out. I was emotionally and physically exhausted and drained. And I just remember she handed my husband like a pamphlet or like a folder full of like
Stuff.
different,
Papers.
papers and um, funeral homes and things like that. And she had asked us, "Do you know what you want to do with this body?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, I didn't even like think about that. And we opted to have him buried. So um, yeah, they obviously before they discharged me, they had me do like a. I'm not sure if everyone like moms who've gone through this, they make them go through this, but they had me do like a psych evaluation. They I guess I was like on the higher side of postpartum depression and like suicide, and so they opted to put me on medication for that as well,
Mhm.
which I think when I think about it now, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think it's not a good, like when you give someone who's just recently lost their baby a psych evaluation, of course they're not okay.
Yeah. I know. It's like, it's not
Of course they're
fair
not
to
going to
be
be,
in that
yeah,
situation. Yeah.
I just think it's like the wrong time to do a psych
Yeah.
evaluation on someone
Yes,
who's
I'm
just,
sad. Yes, I
yes,
don't want to be
yes,
here.
I don't
Literally.
want to be here, you
Yeah.
know? So obviously, yeah, I think that's something that they need to work on. But yeah, so they gave me medication for that, and they got discharged. And I remember you have to obviously be walked out in a wheelchair, especially for me. I had just gotten a C-section, so they put me in a wheelchair, discharged me, and I remember I held on to that box, and I remember someone put headphones on me because there was babies crying on the hallway, so they didn't want me to hear. So I don't really remember who it was, but they put headphones on me and they played music really, really loud. And I just remember holding on to this white box and sobbing because it's not supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to leave with a box. You're it's not supposed to be like that.
Nope.
And um I remember feeling desperate. I remember feeling empty. I remember feeling so much hopelessness and so much anger. and just sobbing. And I remember I was put into the car in the front seat when I know I was supposed to be in the back seat with my baby. But I remember being put in the front seat and my husband holding my hand, and we drove off, and it just felt unnatural. It just felt like I was leaving my baby behind. And I chose not to come home. I chose to go to my mom's house because I wasn't ready to come home to a nursery. And we did stay at my parents' house for a bit. We were there. So Tommy was born December 17, and we stayed at my mom's until after Christmas Day. So we were there for a bit, and obviously my mom and my family took good care of both my husband and I, and you know, they don't know what to say but to just feed you and make sure you're okay.
Yes.
And I remember my mom cooking for me and trying to feed both my husband, but you're just not hungry. You're just have no will for anything. You're just you're just surviving. And yeah, that was really hard.
When you guys were in the hospital and they were asking you about the funeral arrangements, what did you guys end up deciding? Because they usually have to have an answer of like what you're planning on doing pretty
Yes,
before you leave. And you're like, I have to
yes,
make this very big decision.
yes.
Yeah, a short time. So, what did you guys talk about?
Um, we didn't know for a while. I want to say I don't really remember what I was thinking, but for a while I think I wanted a cremation, but I think that thought was in my head for just a little while, and then we knew we wanted to bury him. We wanted to have him um, buried and have a resting place for him.
Okay.
Yes, that whole process was hard as well. It's crazy how much we have to go through and such, and it has to be quick. It has to be so fast. And my husband, he truly is my hero because he was the one that did the whole, trying to find a resting place for him, the right spot for him. And I just was too weak to be able to do that. So he took that on himself, and with the help of my mom's sister, they both went around and were looking for the right resting spot, and they chose a spot that's maybe like 15 minutes away from our home. And my husband was the one that went a day or 2 days before his funeral service to change him. So he put his outfit on him, and he made sure he looked good and he was in good shape, and had him all dressed up. And I know that that's not easy. And I know that must not have been easy for him. For the service, it was very intimate. It was really, really small. Just immediate family, just people that I think are important to my husband and I. But we did for the viewing. I chose not to have anyone.
Mm.
Um, so it was just not that I didn't choose to have anyone. I chose to have just my parents
Yeah.
and his dad, and obviously my husband and I, and my grandparents. That's it. No one else. I didn't let my sister or my brother, not because I didn't want them to see him, but I wanted them to remember him how he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
your baby changes, they look like them, but at the same time, they don't look like them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want my siblings to remember him. I didn't want that to be the last time that they would to see him. I wanted them to remember how he was in the hospital, how he was still, a little bit more pink, and he looked like a baby. Obviously, the funeral service was heartbreaking. That's like the best way I could describe it. heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, hopelessness, emptiness. You just feel like this overwhelming sense of this is your fault. This is your fault. And that's the only way I could really explain it. I just felt like this was my fault. My body failed me. My body failed my baby. I was too stubborn. I chose not to listen to my mom. And if I would have listened, my baby would have still been here. And it's something that I still deal with till this day. And I know that it's been, 5 months, and I I know that it's something I have to work on to forgive myself, but I know that's easier said than done. I don't blame the doctors. I don't blame anyone. For some reason, blame myself in all of this. And I hope that Tommy knows that I'm sorry, and I wish that he was here. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I guess I just have to survive from here on out. I did choose to go to therapy. I know people have different experience with therapy. Um, I I didn't feel I feel like every time for me, they were just wanting to put me on medicine. And I just felt that it was a band-aid to the cut, to the wound.
Yeah.
And I knew that in order for me to grieve properly and to have a better day, I needed to feel it all. I needed to go through the pain. I needed to feel the sadness, feel the anger, feel the devastation. The I just needed to go through that in order for me to get better. So I stopped seeing a therapist, and my mom became my therapist, and I feel like I became really well at expressing how I'm feeling to her. So I stopped seeing a therapist and just spending every Saturday with my mom and just talking about how I'm feeling has been very healing for me.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you need to do what is best for you. And yeah, I do think that people forget that you need to actually process it. You need to go through it. You need to feel the anger, feel the sadness, feel the devastation, the despair, all the.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your mom is a wonderful woman who is
Yes.
taking good care of you.
Yeah, she is. She's wonderful.
Yes, when you were talking to Dr. Sawyer or any of your other medical team, did they say anything about why his heart why Tommy's heart was starting to how his heart rate was starting to drop so much? Did they see anything or and then also did you have an autopsy? Was that something that you guys opted to do to try and get a few more answers?
Afterwards, so sorry. When I was in the hospital, one of these a different OB came to see me, and he told me that they had sent my placenta to pathology. He did say that my umbilical cord was slightly short,
Oh,
um, but he said that definitely had nothing to do with it.
okay.
From just a visual inspection on my placenta, it didn't look abnormal. They did take a blood sample from the umbilical cord,
Mhm.
and he said something like the acidity level was, I forgot if he said so high or so low, but they couldn't even get a reading on it.
Oh,
And
of the
he,
placenta.
yeah, from the umbilical cord.
Oh, from the umbilical cord. Okay.
Hmm. And he, I think he tried. Sorry, it was really foggy, but I think he tried. I think he said something like that means he was not. He didn't have enough oxygen or something like that,
Mhm.
because of the level readings from that blood sample.
Oh,
It was too acidy or something like that. But I did once my first postpartum appointment came up, I asked my OB, and I said, did something come up with my placenta? Like, was it? He's like, no, your placenta maybe was on the little smaller side, but nothing too small. It was slightly, but the pathologist didn't find any abnormalities. I chose not to have an autopsy on Tommy because he was perfect, and I just didn't see, reason to do it. But I did choose to have my placenta sent to pathology, and nothing abnormal. They did tell me that he did pass his first stool inside.
Oh,
So I think that was what I was seeing on his leg.
yeah.
I'm not sure. I forgot what it's called. The first stool that they
Meconium.
meconium. Yes, that's what he said. Meconium. I had the membranes were tinted with meconium.
Yeah.
So he definitely pooped inside of me, and that alone could cause
Yeah.
something like this, which I don't know if my mind is trying to, put the pieces together and say, well, maybe he was ready to come out a long time ago when I was feeling all these, weird contractions and weird, pains, and maybe he was telling me I'm ready to come out, and I didn't know, and he pooped inside me because he was already ready, but my water didn't break, and you know I just assumed I'm gonna go into labor when my water breaks, like all the movies, like all the movies do, and but it didn't happen for me, so obviously the way that the doctor described it, he said it's like being struck by lightning. We don't know what happened. We unfortunately this happened, and we can't give you an answer to why it happened because your whole pregnancy you were super healthy,
Yeah.
and we don't know what went wrong. They till this day nothing
Oh,
nothing and that's the scary part because I don't have an answer
yeah.
to what happened, and the only thing I could think of is maybe I had undiagnosed preeclampsia
Hmm.
um, because of my headaches and
Yeah.
the
And the
swelling,
swelling.
and yeah, that's the only thing I could honestly think of, that maybe I had preeclampsia and it never was caught.
Yeah.
And
Yes, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I just um I I don't know if others others that are listening or watching have just had their mouth open the entire time of just like, oh my gosh, I just can't believe all of this that happened to you in such an instant. It just felt like so fast. But thank you for sharing Tommy's story with us. It was beautiful, like what you were able to do with him and share with your family. Before we close, I just like to ask if there's anything that you wanted to say about him, to share with our listeners. Any last thing that maybe we missed? I don't want to miss anything. So if there's anything you wanted to just tell us about him, we'd love to hear it.
he was too perfect. He was too perfect, and he was just too perfect to be here with us. We're full of flaws, and all these babies that are taken away from their parents are too perfect to be here. And they are angels and deserve to be in a way more beautiful place than this place. Yeah, he was too perfect.
Thank you so much again. Yes, that was perfect.
Thank you for having me here.